Hey everyone, welcome back to another video and update on Hurricane Beryl. This storm is just a huge historic record breaker of a system. It is currently, as of the latest advisory at 2 p.m., a 150 mile per hour Category 4 storm. That is a high in Category 4, nearly Category 5, with a pressure at 946 millibars. It is now moving west-northwest at 20 miles per hour. It just made landfall a few hours ago in the Windward Islands, in Carriacao, or I'm sure I'm butchering the name of that island, but that was the island that it made landfall on at a strength at 150 miles per hour and 950 millibars. So as I just said, the pressure currently in the system is 946 millibars. So it is currently still strengthening and getting stronger. I will show you in a bit what it currently looks like. But as of now, is 2 p.m. advisory. With the cone forecast that the National Hurricane Center has for it, it is continuing to show it moving to the west and northwest. Hurricane watch is in effect for Jamaica. Tropical storm watch remains to be in effect for Hispaniola as it approaches those areas heading into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and Wednesday. This storm is truly just a historic record breaker. This is the strongest Category 4 ever recorded this early in the season. The first Category 4 ever recorded in the month of June. It became a Category 4 yesterday on the last day of June, and now it's become the strongest Category 4 ever, beating Dennis of 2005 that became a Category 4 in early July of that year. So we're on just a record pace, and as I mentioned, it is near a Category 5 strength. So if it does in fact become a Category 5 later today and this evening, the new recon mission may find, then it will beat out Emily of 2005 for the record earliest Category 5 ever in the Atlantic. Emily, of course, became a Category 5 in the middle of July of that season. So truly historic storm that we are seeing unfold. And now let's take a look and show you guys what this storm is currently looking like. And my goodness, it is a scary sight. You can see the eye is continuing to straighten out, to become more symmetrical, and deep convection is blowing up all around it with those intense convective burst all around the eye. It is just a monster of a storm. This is the presentation on the IR temperature brightness in degrees Celsius. You can see all around the eye we're seeing cloud top temperatures as high as negative 70 to 75, even 80 degrees Celsius. Now let's take a look at it on visible high res, and you can see it is just a monster of a storm with a beautiful circular eye now, with, you can see in the center there, you can see all the way down to the ocean surface, but you can see there's a bunch of mesovortices circulating all around the eye there. That is the most intense thunderstorms and cells all around the eye, in the eye wall, where the strongest of the winds and the peak of the winds are. So just a truly monster storm. The recent recon flights that we've seen fly through the storm earlier today through around early this afternoon have shown that it is just continuing to strengthen. The most recent recon flights showed that the pressure continued to fall and is now at where the National Hurricane Center has it, in the mid 940s and 946 millibars, and the winds they found all the way up to around 140 knots on the surface. Now the flight levels did not fully support it being that high, which 140 knots would be 160 miles per hour, which would make Beryl a Category 5. So Beryl is definitely, especially now with how it looks, it seems to be on its way to becoming a Category 5, and we will see later this evening if I closed that out. Let me pull that back up. If the recon flights later this evening will find Beryl to have reached that Category 5 status, that will be a very interesting thing to watch out for, because so there, when you scroll to the bottom here, you can see this NOAA, this NOAA training mission. It says upper level drop zone. It flew to it looks like around Puerto Rico, or around it seems around Puerto Rico there, and that will be that next flight that flies into Beryl in a few hours for this evening. And so that will really determine whether or not the National Hurricane Center deems it to be possibly stronger and reach that Category 5 strength, which would, again, as I've said, make it the earliest recorded Category 5 ever in the Atlantic, beating out Hurricane Emily of 2005, which reached Category 5 strength in mid-July of that season. So that is going to be some very, very interesting and very scary. That would be a very scary situation to see unfold if the system does become a Category 5, because with the track that it's taking, of course, it does seem like it will encounter some stronger shear as it gets towards the Central Caribbean. But if it, and now with how strong it already is, it likely won't even really weaken all too much with even that encounter of stronger shear. But if it does strengthen even more to that Category 5 status and is able to remain at that strength for the rest of today and into tomorrow, and then start to maybe encounter that shear and start to weaken from it, it really won't weaken all that much. And Jamaica especially could be seeing a major hurricane either directly or just barely go to the south of that island, with major hurricane impacts possibly impacting them in a few days' time, midway through this week on Wednesday. And of course, especially the southern coast of Hispaniola under the tropical storm watch currently could see maybe closer to that or those hurricane conditions, depending on if Beryl as well goes a little further to the north and west, and especially because of that, then gets that hurricane wind field gets closer to the southern coast of Hispaniola, and Jamaica especially could see that possibly a direct impact from Beryl as a major hurricane if it ends up continuing to go maybe a bit further to the north and west. But as of right now, it's moving to the west-northwest at 20 miles per hour, and currently it looks like it'll go just south of Jamaica. But even so, if it even goes here to the just south of the island, it will Jamaica itself will still be dealing with the worst part of the storm on the northern side, with that still the strongest winds on that side and heavy rain and flooding threat for Jamaica regardless. But still, a direct impact would be the worst case scenario. Regardless, Jamaica will be likely seeing those hurricane conditions at this point as we get towards Wednesday this week. So truly devastating situation that could unfold for that area. Now let's take a look at the hurricane models. Let's take a look at the HWRF model for Beryl, and this is the current 12Z run of the HWRF model for Beryl. Move this forward in time. The model shows Beryl strengthening down into the low 940s, which obviously already at 946 millibars. So HWRF is really crushing it with showing how strong Beryl really is and could be as it continues to the northwest through the Caribbean over the next day before it encounters that shear and starts to weaken, most likely. However, it especially shows it weakening as we get towards it gets towards Jamaica, and the HWRF shows it making actually a direct landfall and impact on Jamaica, and then it starts to really show it weakening and its pressure rising into the 960s, 950s. But then as it approaches the Yucatan, it shows Beryl start to re-intensify back down at the 940s pressure-wise, and then it crosses the very northern part of the Yucatan and then into the Gulf of Mexico, where it has it sustain itself and still as a strong hurricane, even possibly a major hurricane, as we get into later towards the end of this week and into the beginning of this weekend. So that is very, very concerning to see. So we will have to really keep an eye on that. And again, it all comes down to how much this shear in the Central Caribbean will impact this storm, and see how much it really weakens the storm. Because if it doesn't weaken the storm all that much, Beryl will, as we've seen already, take full advantage of those extremely warm and extremely record warm sea surface temperatures of the Caribbean right now and just re-intensify. Now, this is the HMON model, and the HMON model is a bit more bullish on how strong Beryl was, especially going through the islands pressure-wise. But you can see, as we show here, it's around that 945 millibar pressure right now. And as we move it forward, the HMOD model shows it weakening a lot more and going just to the south of Jamaica, much more in line with what the current cone forecast from the National Hurricane Center shows. But having Jamaica deal with that hurricane conditions and heaviest rainfall, strongest winds on that side, it continues through the rest of the central and into the western Caribbean, showing the storm reach the northern and central part of the Yucatan Peninsula as around the upper 970s pressure-wise, and it crosses the Yucatan and then weakens a lot and becomes a lot weaker of a system as it enters the southwestern Gulf of Mexico by the time we get into Saturday this weekend. So there's a lot to determine with what how strong and what Beryl will do as we get through the rest of this week, and especially we'll start to get a lot better of those answers once it gets, I would say, once it gets closer to Jamaica in the middle of this week. Then at that point, I think we will really know whether or not it will be going more towards the northern and western side of potentially just clipping, or just going on to the northern and eastern parts of the Yucatan, where it will be able to remain more intact and become a stronger system, and then really enter the Gulf of Mexico and possibly pose more of a threat to the western Gulf Coast of the U.S. and northern Mexico. So we will really see if that will happen, or it goes more south and just heads towards the central and western parts of the Yucatan Peninsula and into southern Mexico and becomes more of a weaker system. We'll have to really watch and see. That will all be answered, I think, by the time we get, especially towards the middle of this week. Now, let's take a look at the HAFS A model. The HAFS A and HAFS B model are the two newest real hurricane centric models that we've been using the last couple of years now. And so let's take a look first at what the HAFS A model shows for Beryl. Starting off, showing it it shows it really weakening and becoming a lot weaker of a system as it gets towards Jamaica and goes south of Jamaica with a lot weaker of a system, much more disorganized of a system. However, as it approaches the Yucatan Peninsula, it then has a Beryl really rebounding in strength and becoming a lot stronger of a system with a very intense core as it passes over the Yucatan Peninsula and then emerges into the Gulf of Mexico as a weaker system, but then has it strengthening yet again in the Gulf and in the southwestern Gulf, heading towards the central and northern parts of the Mexican Gulf Coast. Now, so that's what the HAFS A model shows. Now let's show you what the HAFS B model shows for Beryl. And you can see starting out, has it around the low to mid 940s, which is right around where pressure-wise where it is now. Move this forward in time, shows it weakening because of that shear and going just to the south of Jamaica, bringing the worst of the conditions of the storm to Jamaica with the heaviest rain, strongest winds most likely, and hence why Jamaica is under a hurricane watch. We bring it into the western Caribbean, and you can see then it has it really re-strengthening yet again, and then heading over the central and southern parts of the Yucatan Peninsula, and enters the southwestern Gulf of Mexico as a much weaker system, but then has it re-strengthening in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico and heading towards that Gulf of Mexico, the Mexican Gulf Coast there. So, moral of the story: it seems like the hurricane models in general have it weakening as it gets into the central Caribbean because of that shear. Really, we'll just have to see, depending how strong that shear is and how strong Beryl is as it really starts to get into that more high shear environment, how much that weakens the storm, and then we'll just have to see how much it rebounds, if it does rebound and strengthens again right before it gets to the Yucatan. And that will all really determine what it does as it gets towards the Yucatan and the Gulf of Mexico, whether it starts to head more in a north and northwesterly direction, gets more of the U.S. Gulf Coast in play, or it continues more to the west direction and just has the Mexican Gulf Coast in its sights. And that will be the key thing to watch as we head through the rest of this week and towards the end of this week. So, man, Beryl really is just... there's a loss of words for me and really from everyone who has been tracking the storm up to this point, of like words to describe how strong the storm is and how truly historically strong the storm is at this time of year. We've really never seen anything like this storm in this part of the Atlantic, in this part of the Caribbean, at this point in the season, with how early on in the season this is. Yeah, again, Beryl is the strongest storm we've had up to this point, obviously by a landslide. Currently, it's 150 mile per hour strong Category 4 storm with a pressure of 946 millibars. We've already had 3 total named storms, 1 hurricane, 1 major hurricane. That, of course, is Beryl. So far this hurricane season, we've had 4 fatalities and a damage total of around or less than $10 million. That was due to Alberto, our first named storm of the season, earlier in the middle of the month of June. We had Chris spin up over the last couple of days and bring more heavy rain and flooding to Mexico, but that has since dissipated. The ACE index now is up to 9.2 units of the season, and that is really all due to Beryl and how strong it is and continues to be. Now, we will see just how strong Beryl continues to be and if it strengthens even more throughout the rest of today. The recon flights that we'll get later this evening and tonight will really determine to see if Beryl has attained that Category 5 intensity or if it peaked just under Category 5 intensity around what maybe how strong it is now, or maybe reached 155 miles per hour and maybe a lower pressure, just a little bit lower of a pressure when they fly in there later tonight. Of course, we had Chris spun up in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico for a day. It was a 40 mile per hour tropical storm, 1,005 millibars as its lowest pressure, brought some more heavy rain and flooding to parts of the southern Mexican Gulf Coast. And yeah, I mean, it's really Beryl. Beryl is the story, and that will continue to be the story the rest of this week. I really hope you guys found this video informative, helpful. Comment down below, how strong do you think Beryl will ultimately get, especially with how it looks currently. Let's go back and show you how Beryl looks now. This is the IR loop, and you can see its eye has just continued to become more circular, more dry, and just much more of a really just strong monster look of a storm, where it really looks like it's a high end or toward the highest end a major hurricane can get. It is truly both a beautiful and monstrous historic storm all in one. So comment down below, how strong do you think Beryl will be getting at peak intensity? If you think it's already peaked, do you think it will get any stronger before it gets to the Central Caribbean and starts dealing with that stronger shear? Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more updates on Beryl and more updates throughout the hurricane season for any more crazy tropical cyclones we end up encountering, especially as we get to the peak of the season, even though early season is really starting to feel like the peak of the season already. So that just kind of goes to show you possibly how crazy this hurricane season is going to get with what Beryl has become already. So again, comment down below, how strong do you think Beryl will get? Let's have a nice lively discussion about that down in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to more content like this, more updates on Beryl, more content for the rest of the hurricane season, and all the other tropical cyclones we'll encounter for the rest of the season. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, found it informative, helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.